Welcome, welcome. I bid you a fine fair welcome. Grab yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or maybe a glass of wine for this one. Arne Johnson. This is the phenomenal trial of Arne Johnson, and these are the documents from the Supreme Court. And this is a very interesting, intriguing, and phenomenal story. And we're going to go through lots of different rabbit holes, lots of rabbit holes. So strap yourself in for this one. Today's date is Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, and please do not fear the number 13, for it is a Fibonacci number. It is a perfect number, and the Fibonacci sequence can be observed through all of creation, the golden ratio, and we can see this sequence through many different layers of creation, in trees, elephants, humans, and it is evidence of a designer. So join me by the fire and let's talk about this phenomenal case. And if you don't know, the trial of Arne Johnson, also known as the Devil Made Me Do It case, is the first known court case in the United States in which the defense sought to prove the innocence based upon the defendant's claim of demonic possession and denial of personal responsibility of the crime. So this is a phenomenal story, and the phenomenology is the study of structures of consciousness as experienced from a first person point of view. And also phenomenology is a discipline, is distinct from but related to other key disciplines in philosophy. And in this channel we are going to explore the paranormal and phenomenology. This is something I find very, very interesting. And if you do not know this, the word theory is a contemplative, try and say that word with a few glasses of wine. So it's contemplation. A theory is a contemplation and rational type of abstract or generalized thinking about a phenomenon. Isn't that extraordinary? Or results of such thinking. So this has got to do with contemplation, the life, and refers to thinking profoundly. So if you're somebody that enjoys to contemplate, you've came to the right place and you're in the right club here, because we are going to go down a crazy rabbit hole for Friday the 13th, and I do hope to get this. I really do hope to God that I get this video uploaded for Friday the 13th. And it is afternoon, and it is 2:36 p.m. And what we're going to look at also is, as I said, this is going to be a rabbit hole and an adventure. So pack a lunch and let's sit by the fire. And what I found here is a document which is considered in a court of law and the role of the paranormal in the courtroom. It's a very interesting article, and I will leave this article in the description below. I'm just going to have some tea with two beautiful honey. Beautiful. So I don't know if you know this, but this was the first time that paranormal was presented in a court of law during a murder trial. And back to this court here. These are all the court documents from the Supreme Court. What what we're going to look into is different theories and generalized thinking about a phenomenon. And isn't it very strange that the word theory is related to phenomenon, and theories are all backed up by philosophy. And this is where we get into phenomenology, because this is a phenomenal case, a really strange case, and you can make your own decision. You can make your own decision about this case, but let's just go into it. Arne Johnson, 19, stabbed Alan Bono, 40. And I always think of the lead singer, U2, for some reason. When I was reading this, age 40, more than 20 times with a pocket knife. So this man, Arne Johnson, was only 19. And more than 20 times with a pocket knife on February 16th, 1981. The small community of Brookline, and I did see that Brookfield here. So I just think that it's a mistake in the article about the man's address. So in Brookline, Connecticut, was shocked at the murder, the first in its 193-year history. But that was nothing compared to the shock of Johnson's intended defense, guilty, reason of demonic possession. So that is the reason why this man committed the murder, and in this article it does explore the way the court observes the paranormal. And what you've got here is, if you can read this, in this in this section of the article concerning beliefs in the paranormal, there are many cases involving outlandish facts. These cases are chosen because they underscore the extent of the testator. Testator, is that someone who testifies? The testator in the belief in the paranormal. It is also true that this article features lengthy quotations. This is because the article's primary focus concerns on how the court treated the paranormal. Isn't this fascinating? In some cases, it is necessary to provide the court extended discussion if it is particularly illustrative to the judicial attitudes towards the paranormal. These attitudes are best demonstrated through the text itself. Finally, this article discusses the supernatural and the paranormal. Any subject cannot be exchanged through controversial methods, for the belief in this article is similar seen, and so on. Very, very interesting that this is a real documentation for court, and I read through all this, and some of the claims are absolutely bizarre. And what's even more bizarre is the court actually considered paranormal evidence quite a lot, and same with the act of God is something that is definitely considered in a court of law an act of divine intervention. But there is a couple of things that are going to be very interesting, and I need to show you this before getting into this trial, before exploring this trial. So yeah, here, finally, in at least one case in Rebel's estate, the Supreme Court of Wisconsin seemed to actually indicate that it believed that something paranormal had happened during the course of the judicial proceedings. How interesting is that? Isn't that fascinating that that was actually considered? And there is points here that are presented. Beliefs in the paranormal as affecting one's mental capability in context of other law. So I can back up to that bit. See this bit here? The court proceedings, number 24. Number 24, so I read down. I scrolled down to number 24. And no, though not exactly alleged to be paranormal by the court, the United States was tasked with determining whether money obtained the following situation: income. Before the £5,000 was handed over, the petitioner requested that Thomas spat into the chicken's mouth. What the hell? The petitioner explained that if the chicken then died, everything was going to be alright as far as the spirits were concerned. The death of the chicken would be a good omen. Thomas spat into the chicken's mouth, and apparently for a short time later the chicken did in fact die. What the hell? So, I've got here a belief in the paranormal effect. Oh yeah, I just read that. Apologies. Belief in the supernatural and criminal law. Person claiming to have supernatural powers. We can go into all this and really explore it, but it's so much reading because we've got this trial to go into for Friday the 13th. And this trial is very interesting, where it includes Ed and Lorraine Warren from the Conjuring, or Annabelle. The doll, Annabelle. This is very interesting. I really enjoy this stuff. Lawsuits against fictional or supernatural entities. Psychological impact. This is so interesting. So there's a bit here where if evidence is presented in a court of law, it will be considered. And witnesses can testify, but that is to do with empirical. But this is where we get down a rabbit hole. So empirical, I'm not too sure if you know this, the word empirical comes from the Greek empiricus, from experience, imperia, which is experience to do with observation. Empirical evidence is information received by the means of senses, particularly by observation, documentation, and through experimentation. So if people do on a Ouija board, for example, and you observe and you have these senses, the word comes from experience. So if you have an experience, it becomes empirical. So you hear these people saying the paranormal is not empirical science. Well, it kind of is, because as was seen, the word theory is a rational and abstract generalized thinking about a phenomenon. And this is a phenomenon. And what I'm going to show you here, there's much more in this article. So it talks about in this article that when someone swears in by an oath, they swear in through a supernatural entity, which is, I will tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. And the judge does make it clear that if you lie, there is supernatural consequences. That's what it explains in this article. And to go up here, there's a conclusion here. And so in these instances, some courts mention the fact that subjects of religion are commonly accepted, with the seeming implication that some of the occurrences are not outside the realm of possibility. So the court does acknowledge that these things can happen, but evidence needs to be presented. So we're going to go back into this case. This is so interesting, and this is going to go in deep into phenomenology, the disciplines of ontology, epistemology, logic, and ethics. So this is very interesting, and let's continue on. I really do hope you enjoy this, and grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee or a glass of wine for this one, and thank you for being here with me again. So Johnson, this is a very interesting case. Johnson moved into the home of his girlfriend David Glatzel in May 1980. A month before, David began to claim he was being tormented by a demon. Glatzel's family sought help from Catholic Church and famed demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, who performed 4 minor rites of exorcisms to expel the 42 demons allegedly contained in David's body. And this was Glatzel, Arne Johnson's girlfriend. So Arne Johnson, his girlfriend, it was her brother that was apparently had these amount, and I don't know which way, but I don't want to get into that. Let's stay on the case here. So this is what was presented in the court of law, and these are all the court, all the documentation. And I wish Ed and Lorraine Warren had got more evidence, but let's just continue on here. More evidence meaning observable, which becomes like empirical, so the judge has to experience it. So performed rite of exorcism. During one such rite, Arne Johnson, so as the man we see here who's being convicted of the crime, challenged the demons to enter him instead. Not long afterwards, Johnson, who had no prior criminal record, stabbed Bono to death. Martin Molina, Johnson's defense attorney, cited 2 British court cases that permitted a defense based on possession by demons. But Judge Robert Callahan refused the tactic, stating such assertions should not be scientifically or objectively proven. The assertions could not be scientifically or objectively proven by evidence. So it is interesting that the judge was going to consider this if there was enough evidence, which is going back to empirical evidence received by the senses, particularly by observation and documentation. So if this was true, so we all know about EMF. If you're interested in the paranormal, this is an instrument that is used to study the paranormal, because the theory is that electromagnetic energy is one of the big reasons why spirits... Sorry, I'm just having a drink of tea. Apologies. So we can observe that there's electromagnetic energy in environments where there should not be. For example, if you're in an abandoned environment, an abandoned building, and there is no electrics, and you're receiving EMF measurements, that is something that is paranormal or a phenomenon. And this is going back to the theory. A theory is generalized thinking about a phenomenon. So what we've got here, yep, by the judge Minala, am I saying that right? Minala argued self-defense instead. The jury found that Johnson guilty of first-degree manslaughter on November 24th, 1981. He received a sentence of 10 to 20 years, of which he served 5 for good behaviour. And that is very, very interesting indeed. So we'll go back to this one here. And I read it there on November 24th, 1981. Yep. This article, November 24th, 81. November 24th. And Johnson was convicted of first degree manslaughter for killing his landlord. So this was his landlord, and just listen to this story. This is going to get. This is a rabbit hole, and I wish Ed and Lorraine Warren had video evidence of what was going on here, just to see which way the judge would look upon this case. And this is the judge here, actually considering and one of the theories is that it was just a one last ditch attempt to get Arne Johnson off. But this story gets really, really interesting. So according to testimony by the Glatzel family, 11-year-old David Glatzel, so 11 years old, had allegedly played host to a demon, forced Johnson to kill Bono. So Arne Johnson here was taken over by the same entity that was in her brother, his girlfriend's brother. So after witnessing a number of increasingly anomalous occurrences involving David and the family, exhausted and terrified, decided to enlist the aid of self-described demonologists. I like that word, self-described. Sorry, I said self-subscribed. Self-described demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. And if you don't know who these guys are the guys that were played in The Conjuring. The Conjuring universe, and of course it could be Hollywood literally taking advantage of a lot of people. But let's go back to the case and the trial. So Ed and Lorraine Warren, noted for their investigation into the famed Amityville haunting. So they were actually involved in the Amityville horror case. You know, the Amityville horrors. In the last-ditch effort to cure David, the Glatzel family, along with the Warrens, then proceeded to have multiple priests petition the church to have formal exorcisms performed on David. The process continued for several days, concluding when, according to those present, a demon fled the child's body and took up residence with Johnson. So that's to do with testimony. So they observed this. Let's come back to phenomenology. They experienced this through a first person point of view. Consciousness experience through a first person. So this is a phenomenal case. But we need observable evidence though. I wish Ed and Lorraine Warren had have recorded this. So, and fled the child's body in the residence. Several months later, Johnston, who's being tried for the crime, Johnson killed his landlord during a heated conversation. His defense lawyer argued in court that he was possessed. I read that line, sorry. His defense lawyer later argued in court that he was possessed, but the judge ruled that such a defense could not be proven and was therefore infeasible in a court of law. And this is going back to this document and evidence. And this is a very interesting article. I will link this in, as I said. So, Johnson was subsequently, am I saying that right? Subsequently, jeez, am I saying that right? Apologies.
Subsequently.
Oh my god, apologies for my reading. Subsequently convicted, though he served 5 years of a 10 to 20 year sentence. The trial attracted immediate attention from around the world and obtained a level of notoriety due to the numerous depictions of the event in literature and television, which is a lot of just a lot of hype and stuff. A film adaptation is currently in production and will be titled The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. So, this is actually a depiction from the Discovery Channel, and of course you have to take this story with a grain of salt. You really, really, really do. And this story gets really, really interesting. So, we're just going to read on, and we will link back to the actual court case also, and look into the documentation, what we'll have here, the way paranormal is considered in a court of law. So we'll be doing that, and it's very interesting that there was one case where the paranormal was considered about that man spitting in the chicken's mouth. What the hell was that all about? So let's get back into this trial, and the story continues, and this is a very interesting story. So grab yourself a cup of tea and let's sit down for this one, or a glass of wine maybe. Arne Johnson and David Glatzel provided first-hand accounts of the version events depicted in Discovery Channel's A Haunting, Where Demons Dwell. During the interview, they claimed to be eyewitnesses to demonic possession, and both were admitted in their support of the Warrens. And both were adamant in their support of the Warrens' recollection of the events. They asserted that the paranormal activity began when they asserted that the paranormal activity began after they went to clean up a rental property they had just acquired. David recollected that an old man appeared, pushing and terrifying him. The couple initially thought David was using the old man as an excuse to avoid cleaning. That's a funny one. I think you could come up with a better excuse to avoid cleaning than an old man pushing. But listen to this. But David informed but David informed then that the old man had vowed to harm the Glatzels if they moved into the rental home. David's vision of the old man included the man appearing as a demonic beast who muttered Latin and threatened to steal his soul. Although the family allegedly heard strange noises coming from the attic, no one but David ever witnessed the old man. After David experienced night terrors, exhibited strange behavior, and obtained unexplained scratches and bruises, the family called upon services of a Catholic priest who attempted to bless the house. The terrified family concluded that the house was evil and would no longer continue to rent it. So, David's visions worsened according in the same day as well. 12 days after the original incident, the family asked for the help of proclaimed demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren to assist. Lorraine allegedly witnessed a black mist materialize next to David, an apparent indication of a malevolent presence. Debbie and her mother told the Warrens that they had seen that David had been choked by an invisible hands, that red marks appeared on his neck afterwards. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible or a Paradise Lost. In this Paradise Lost is an epic poem, a blank verse by the 17th century English poet. It's very strange. So this was 1981. So this book was published in 1608. A poem. How the hell did he know these? How did he recite? Unless he was an educated person. That is a logical way to look at it. But that is phenomenal, if that's true. The Glatzel recounted how each night a family member would remain awake with David as he suffered through spasms and convulsions. Spasm and convulsions in 1981. You see, this could be epileptic seizures. This is a logical way to look at it, and this is a part of the discipline of phenomenology, that you need to apply logic to these things, and it could be logic that someone suffering spasms could be a medical thing rather than a spiritual thing. But if he's reciting 1608 poetry from a poem, Paradise Lost, and I don't know how this was observed. Was this recorded through audio tape? I'm not too sure about that, but convulsions after receiving the prognosis of multiple possessions. Prognosis. So that's like a diagnosis. So if you've been diagnosed, I don't know if you can diagnose anybody of a possession, because it's, as we're talking about, this is a theoretical and a contemplation. So a diagnosis is more of a scientific way to look at it, and this is a spiritual matter. But it is a strange word, a prognosis. Prognosis. Let me just make sure I'm saying this word right for all you folks, because I don't want to be saying something that I'm not saying right.
Prognosis.
Yeah. So they were diagnosed then. No, it's a joke. David was subjected to 3 lesser exorcisms. Lorraine asserts that David levitated, and levitated is a paranormal context, raising of the human body or other objects in the air by mystical means or meditation. That is very, very interesting. So David levitated, ceased breathing at the time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. Precognition and also prescience is a vision or a future sight, is claimed to have a psychic ability to see the events of the future. So this is where this case gets even more interesting, that he had a precognition or a vision of this murder actually happening. But this is from Ed and Lorraine Warren point of view. So in relation to the murder, Johnson would later commit. And so this was the prognition in the relation to the murder that Arne Johnson would later commit. In October 1980, the Warrens contacted Brookfield Police, the Warren. Now, I did show you in the Supreme Court documentation that this address could be wrong, because by the Supreme Court, his address was Brookline, Connecticut. And this article is... where was I? Levitated. Brookfield Police. Brookfield. And the court. Brookline. I don't know if that's a mistake of address on the court. I doubt that the Supreme Court got the address wrong. So this shows you that there could be mistakes within Wikipedia. So do not take this as gospel, by no means. So Brookfield, so the Warrens had actually in 1980, so this murder occurred by the Supreme Court 81, February of 81, and the Warrens contacted the police in October 1980, so that's more than a year. No, that's a couple of months before. Apologies. That the Warrens contacted the Brookfield police to warn them that the situation was about to become dangerous. According to the eyewitnesses' testimony, Arne Johnson scored one of the demons purportedly with David to possess him while participating in David's exorcism. Purportedly. Is that apparently? Appears is stated to be true.
Purportedly.
Purportedly. Apologies for doing this, I just want to make sure that I'm saying the right word. It is here that a haunting veers away from the circumstances of Johnson's possession as described by those involved. According to the show, a few days after Johnson egged the demon on during the exorcism, he was attacked rather ferociously by the demon, which allegedly took control of his car and forced it into a tree. Well, I wonder what the insurance company would say about that one. You know, when you phone the insurance company, say I crashed my car, well, what actually happened? Well, a demonic entity actually took over my car and flew it into a tree. So it is very strange that, is it true? Well, That's for you to decide, but very interesting. So, fortunately, Johnson was unharmed. You see, if this was a demonic entity, surely he would die unless there's divine intervention, a miracle occurred. After the incident, Johnson returned to the rental property to examine an old well that housed the demon. In both dramatized versions and his personal account, Johnson recollects that this was the final encounter with the demon while completely lucid, as it was after encountering the demon at the well and making eye contact is when he became possessed. The Warrens claim that the account was the Warrens claim to have warned him not to do this, although their warning was not mentioned in a haunting. As David's condition worsened, Johnson decided it was time to move out of their home. This is his girlfriend, David Glatzel. David Glatzel was then hired by Alan Bono, this was the landlord, as a resident in Brookfield as a dog groomer. Debbie and Johnson began renting an apartment close to their place of employment. After moving in, Johnson started to exhibit odd behaviour that was strikingly similar to David's, causing Debbie to fear that he had become possessed as well. According to Debbie, Arne Johnson would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. So we're going to go into the murder here. On February 16th, 1981, Johnson called in sick to his job at the Wright Tree Service, and he was a tree surgeon. Arne Johnson, who committed the murder, a tree surgeon, joined Debbie at the kennel where she worked a lot. Joined at the kennel. Yep. So she was the dog groomer at the kennel where she worked, along with her sister Wanda and Debbie's 9-year-old cousin Mary. Bono, the couple's landlord and Debbie's employer at the kennel, brought a group at lunch at a local bar and proceeded to drink heavily. After lunch, the group returned to the kennel. Debbie then took the girls to get pizza, but instead they returned quickly, anticipating trouble. So they were expecting trouble. When they returned, Bono, intoxicated at this point, became elegant. What the hell's this word?
Agitated.
Agitated. Oh God, forgive me. Can't even spell. He became agitated. Everyone left the room and except Bono, who seized Mary and refused to let her go. So Bono had actually seized Mary. Johnson headed back to the apartment and ordered Bono to release Mary. Wanda recounted the following events to the police. So I think the landlord was maybe in the wrong here. What was going on? So Mary ran for the car as Debbie attempted to mitigate the situation by standing between the two men. Wanda tried in vain to pull Johnson away. Johnson, growling like an animal, then drew a 5-inch pocket knife and stabbed Bono repeatedly. Like, that escalated so quickly. And this guy, Arne Johnson, was only 19 years of age, which was insane. Bono died several hours later. According to Johnson's lawyer, Bono had suffered 4 or 5 tremendous wounds, mostly to his chest, and one that stretched from his stomach to the base of his heart. Dear God, Jesus in heaven. Now, this was only a pocket knife, as you can see in the court. A 5-inch pocket knife. This sounds like he had like a bayonet or a sword. 5 inches. That's tiny. And he managed to generate strength that stretched from his stomach to the base of his heart. And this is in a crime book. So that's actually backed up through the judicial court. Johnson was discovered 2 miles from the site of the murder and was held at Bridgeport Correctional Centre on bail of 125,000. So that is a lot of money. This was the first murder in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut. So it is Brookfield. Why on the court documents does it say Brookline? Don't know. It may be an actual community, because I know that America's broken up into states and then counties, and I don't know if Brookline is something to do with a postcode or something. Brookline of Brookfield or something. Don't know. But the day after the murder, Lorraine Warren informed the Brookfield police that that Johnson was possessed when the crime was committed. The media blitz soon surrounded the story, fueled in part by the Warrens, whose agents promised that lectures, a book, and even a movie detailing the gruesome case were in the works. Hold on. So it says here that the Warrens had actually already said they're going to make books and stuff about it. Martin Molina, Johnson's lawyer, received calls from all over the world about being called a demon, the demon murder trial. Molina travelled to England to meet with lawyers who had been involved in 2 similar cases, though never went to trial. He planned to fly in exorcist specialists from Europe and threatened a subpoena the priests who oversaw David Glatzel's exorcism if they did not cooperate with the defense. Subpoena. I just make sure I'm saying that right.
Subpoena.
Subpoena. I was saying subpoena. Subpoena. The trial took place in Connecticut Superior Court in Danbury, beginning in the 28th of October 1981. And Molina attempted to submit a plea of not guilty by virtue of possession. It is strange that possession is 9/10 of the law. That's something that's strange. By virtue of possession, but the presiding judge, Robert Callahan, promptly rejected the defense, and this was based on, as I showed you before, on evidence. There needs to be evidence. Because of this, the jury was not legally allowed to consider demonic possession as a viable explanation for the murder. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over the days before the conviction. Johnson, on November 24th, 1981, of first-degree manslaughter, and was sentenced to 10 to 20 years, though he served only 5. Now that is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. And let's go into the aftermath. Well, the aftermath really is all about the media and the Conjuring and Annabelle. You have all these different paranormal branches that veer off this huge tree of this trial, and this sort of launched Ed and Lorraine Warren into more or less the cornerstone of paranormal research. And they actually did a lot for a lot of people who needed research, because these people were about when there was no internet and there was no research, so they had to go into books and research, and they were backed by the diocese with the Catholic Church, so this could also be a logical reason why they were assuming it was paranormal, because they had a lot of influence with the church. But this case does really go down a huge rabbit hole that could be spoke about for days and days, because Ed and Lorraine Warren have thousands of documented hours of other cases that are very similar. And of course we've got Hollywood. They jump on all this and they make money off actual people's trauma. Like, when you really look at this story, Arne Johnson, like, if this was true, this man, he said he witnessed a demonic possession, and if that was true, which is a part of phenomenology, because phenomenology is the study of structures of consciousness as experienced through a first-person point of view, and it's distinct from but related to other key disciplines in philosophical studies. So when we look at people's statements and theories, they actually do need to be considered, because you can't just say that these people are crazy. Obviously, if they're making crazy statements that don't make any sense. But the police said that the sergeant, lots of the police actually witnessed a lot of paranormal events that happened around these cases, and that's another thing, another rabbit hole, how the police actually address this type of stuff. But I don't think there's any more to add apart from to continue on with Ed and Lorraine Warren. And we can look into the Amityville horror case and stuff like that, but apologies for my reading if it was a bit clunky, because I'm not editing or anything. This is me just speaking properly. But I hope you enjoyed this story. Just a few other things. The aftermath. Okay, the incident led to, yeah, this is all about the programs. All about the programs that came after this event. But I don't think I've showed you the actual court, the judicial court drawings. The attorney addresses the court during the trial of Arne Johnson. So yeah, he looks pretty scary in the drawings. But it's so interesting that this was actually the first case in American history, in a court case where the defense sought to prove the innocence based upon demonic or paranormal events. And it's so interesting that the judge would consider it, but through lack of evidence, this wasn't really a factor, but I wish Ed and Lorraine Warren had more documentation apart from a first person point of view. If they had audio and visual evidence, would have been amazing to see what the judge would have said if there was all this different. And where was the church? Where the hell was the church in all this? I'm sure they had some sort of evidence to try and say that this is actually real. But the church have been covering up a lot of stuff, and I'll not get into that. But this is where this subject of phenomenology is absolutely amazing, because it's based on theories, and if you have any theory whatsoever on this case, please comment, and it'll start an interesting dialogue. People can talk about all different theories, empirical, hypothesis, different scientific methods, and science is to do with what we know. And what we know is to do with philosophy, which is epistemology, is the study of knowing. So all science is based on philosophical views and thoughts. So it is very interesting, and trust me, this is going to be the start of many different cases like this. And if you enjoyed this, do not forget, please don't forget.
Stick around.